Hey TV fans, we return to Stars Hollow. On this video, we're going to be talking about Gilmore Girls Season 2, Episode 9. It is called Runaway Little Boy. So, full spoilers in case you haven't seen this one. And this episode focuses on the school production of Romeo and Juliet at Chiltern. For plot reasons, Rory gets roped into playing Juliet, and the returning Tristan, who has just come back from suspension, ends up playing Romeo. So that stirs up some tension with them because of the previous kiss at the party. And it brings up the idea for Rory, should she tell Dean Lorelai? And she's taking business school classes, and there's a guy who she casually dates at the business school who's a much younger guy. And at the start of the episode, she receives a present, like a late wedding present. So from someone who doesn't know that the wedding was called off. What did you think of this one?
Look, I think this episode is fine, but I don't think it's one of the better ones of season 2. I find it very odd that they brought Tristan back just to send him off. Because at this point in time, Chad Michael Murray was going on to One Tree Hill. That's why they make the reference to him going to North Carolina, because that's where One Tree Hill is set. But we haven't seen Tristan since the season 1 finale. So I don't know why they felt the need to bring him back just to send him off. For me, that was very odd. It was like, we're almost halfway through season 2. We haven't seen Tristan since the season 1 finale. I bet you a lot of viewers probably forgot he even existed, and then he just kind of pops up randomly. I've also got some issues with the way they talk about the play and the way they present the play, because they're definitely not being accurate when it comes to this play, but whatever. So the assignment is that they're an English class, and the play Romeo and Juliet has 5 acts, so they divide them into 5 groups and say that they each have to perform an act, which is not what they're actually doing. They're only performing a scene from the act. So that's my first complaint. It's like, stop saying that you're going to perform all of Act 5, because you're not. But yeah, so I think that this episode was kind of unnecessary. I just don't think that Tristan needed this send-off. And when he comes back in this episode, I don't know, the dynamic between him and Rory is weird. It's like they're acting like they, I don't know, kind of were friends, except that Tristan basically made her life hell for the majority of season 1. They have one moment where they kiss, and then they go back to not liking each other. So I found it very odd that they decided to kind of dedicate almost an entire episode to sending off this character who was not even a great character to begin with, who we didn't really even know that much to begin with. I don't know, it was weird. The Lorelai casually dating storyline is funny and cute. I think it's kind of more supposed to show that, she's moving on from Max, and she's putting herself back out there. And Stephen and I got into a whole discussion about how terrible her and Max's relationship was, because obviously that gets brought up because of the ice cream maker. The guy who plays her date, I actually know more from Pretty Little Liars, and he plays a really, really bad guy on Pretty Little Liars. So it's hard for me to watch him in this and think, oh yeah, you're harmless. I think there's some cute stuff with Lorelai and Rory in this episode. Paris is in fine form as usual. I absolutely love when they're talking about the play and Paris has brought in a box of props and she just pulls out a sword and puts it on the table, and Rory's like, please tell me you didn't just have that lying around somewhere, because it's Paris. You definitely would imagine that she'd have a sword lying around somewhere. And yeah, I think there's some cute stuff with Lorelai and Suki and that, but when I watch season 2, if I'm doing a full rewatch, I might sometimes skip this episode because I just don't think it's that great.
Forgettable, this episode. Yeah. I'm going to go out on a limb and say it may be one of my least favorite ever episodes of the show, but
I get that. It's not a great episode.
We'll see how we go, because obviously I'm rewatching them, but
yeah.
I definitely agree with the stuff about Tristan. It didn't feel like there was enough of a reason, especially to do it when it's quite a long time after that party.
Yeah.
In a way, they could have just faded into the background with him. It could have just been one of those things where there was no reason for them to come across each other and or hang out, or it could have been just something where they put a quick line in somewhere that says he transferred schools or something.
Yeah.
It didn't feel, because it's one thing to bring him back, but they didn't really do anything with him. And
no,
by the time you get to the end of the episode and he has his one kind of nice act where he chooses not to embarrass Rory with Dean there, but it just feels a bit rushed. Like you said, there's not enough reasons to believe these two would hang out or to believe that they would be friends. Like, obviously, for a lot of the episode, Tristan acts like a jerk because that's kind of his thing. Always being nice and noble once again, but there's not enough reason to really do that. They haven't sold us enough on Tristan. Then there is this depth to him, misunderstood, rich kid type trope, which there's a long-running character later in the show that they sort of do that with, but at least with him, it's a long-running character.
Yeah, and he has development and
there's actual development. But yeah, it is a bit of a trope, and it was unconvincing in the case of Tristan. I don't really think the actor's the best, although
I don't either.
I guess he's fine at playing this sort of character, but it's like, no, it wasn't very convincing.
No.
Once again, there's some terrible acting from the Dean actor. I think the scene with
Jared,
with him and Tristan in the supermarket, I think his acting is particularly bad in that scene. Harris is the highlight of this episode. Like, she's on good form, but the rest of the episode, I think, is pretty filler and forgettable and quite bland. And even a lot of the humor I didn't think was that funny, because normally, like, the jokes and the humor can save an episode. But like, I don't know, like that scene with Suki where she's like doing the thing about Shakespeare. It's like,
when she's all like, "Oh, Romeo, blah blah blah." It's like, that's not that funny.
It's that funny, no. Matter inside of the Lorelai and Luke thing, because him getting jealous. So it's
and being an asshole.
The reverse of the previous episode.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
And again, he's a real ass about it. Like, at first, I will say, I do think it is a little bit funny. So there's that scene where Lorelai's date comes into the diner and he's wearing a baseball cap and he's clean shaven and he's got his parents. So he basically comes across as a lot younger than he is. My impression is that he's supposed to be maybe about 24, 25, and Lorelai's about 33 at this point. So I'm assuming that's the age gap. But then when he comes into the diner, he looks really young. Anyway, so they're all teasing her about it. And Lorelai sitting at the counter, and there's a couple of like school kids sitting next to her, and Luke's like, "Would you two move down a little bit and just make me feel a bit more comfortable?" I thought that was funny. But no, then afterwards he tells her that like she's embarrassing herself or something like that. And it's like, oh my God, you're such an asshole. Like, why would you say something like that? And yes, again, it does get old, because I was saying to Stephen, I was like, look, if Luke and Lorelai were teenagers, I could maybe excuse their behavior. But they're grown adults who have both had relationships, who both know what it's like to ask someone out. And so I don't find this back and forth cute. I just find it annoying. So yeah, that was definitely not. Speaking of unflattering, and I just wanted to jump in a little bit and just talk a little bit about Dean, because something comes up in this episode which I think is going to come up more as we continue the season. And I am a bit of a Dean defender, and I also really like Jared Padalecki. I don't think he's quite as bad as you seem to think he is, but that's a difference of opinions. And I really like Jared because he has always been very grateful to Gilmore Girls. He's one of those actors that doesn't just leave the show and then dismiss it. Like, he always talks about, how they gave him his start, and he's very grateful for that. So I do have a bit of a soft spot for Dean. But I think this episode really illustrates something that I think a lot of fans don't take into account when talking about Dean. So Dean gets a lot of hate in the fandom. And on the one hand, I can kind of understand it as we continue the series and as we continue seeing where his character ends up going. There is obviously legit reason to not like him. But I think in this particular instance, in this season here, I think fans are too harsh towards Dean insofar as his jealousy goes, because I think what they don't take into account is a lot of the guys that he's jealous of, which are basically Tristan and Jess, they antagonize him. Like, Tristan deliberately goes to the grocery store and starts to antagonize Dean. And it's like, of course he's going to get pissed off. These guys are basically poking him with a stick. And while there's definitely instances where I think he lets his jealousy get a little too, gets carried away with it, I think that we need to remember that he's a 16-year-old kid with his first girlfriend, and these jerks keep making it clear that not only are they interested in Rory, but that they want to mess with him because of it. And we've seen that with Tristan earlier. So I think as we go on this season, and again, we will talk about this as we do the next episode because we have a little bit more there. I think Dean's character starts to unravel a bit this season. I think some of the writing becomes a bit inconsistent. And I think that the fans don't always acknowledge that sometimes he's got reason to be as angry and as jealous as he gets. They're all teenagers here. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, because I'm not that familiar with that reaction from fans. I know he's not a well-loved character, but I don't know about reasons and stuff. But, I mean, in this episode, apart from him being moody and the acting not being great for me, and just a boring character for me overall.
Fair enough.
Mostly, but, like, I don't think... Like, I can't really blame him for being a little bit jealous in this episode, like the character, and obviously Tristan is the aggressor and what have you. The best things about the episode, I think, is the Lane stuff.
I was about to say that. We finally get some Lane. Yes.
Yeah, I do like that stuff with Rory calling and patching her through to Henry, and she pretending she's on back to Rory, and Mrs. Kim is always great. Like her grilling her and asking questions, because it's like she says, "I'm not taking such and such."
Yeah, she's like, biology? No, I didn't do biology. Why? I did it last year. That's it. 1 year and you know everything. Tomorrow we look into private school. Yeah, Mrs. Kim is always so good. And again, with the Lane stuff, for me, so relatable. Like, so relatable. Hiding boyfriends from parents and trying to figure out how to sneak out and do things. And yeah, it's just so much fun. And I really like that she comes to the school at the end and, you know, she's watching Henry. And yeah, that's a really cute bit. And it's always good when we get some Lane, because she's such a great character. So I agree, that's definitely a highlight of the episode, is that we finally get some Lane content. So that's good. Okay, so let me put my Shakespeare purist hat on for just a second and air my little grievances about the play. So like I said, my first issue is that they keep going on about how they're doing Act 5. It's like, no, you're not doing Act 5, you're doing Act 5 Scene 3, but whatever. Then there's a couple of things that they talk about. Like, for example, at one point, Madeline wants to play Juliet, and Paris is like, Juliet's supposed to be chaste. And I'm like, okay, maybe if you're doing the beginning of the play, Juliet needs to be chaste, but at this point, the girl's definitely had her wedding night. So Madeline can 100% play Juliet. The girl is not a virgin anymore here. But I think what really, really bugs me the most, and they do this obviously knowing that the average audience is not going to realize, but they go on and on about how they're going to have Rory play Juliet because she knows how to publicly speak and she can do the big speech. And then they end the scene before she does her speech. They end the scene with Romeo's death, which is not how that scene ends. The scene ends with Juliet's death. And I know they do it so they can do the whole kiss thing and they can be like, do Rory and Paris actually kiss? But ending it with Romeo's death is wrong. So I just got really annoyed with that.
But maybe they just edited around that. Like, maybe we just didn't see how...
No. I used to think that, but no, because they do Romeo's death and then they put the curtains down and then you hear the applause. So they obviously do. And again, this is something that wouldn't annoy your average person, but Romeo and Juliet is my favorite Shakespeare play. I am a huge, huge Shakespeare fan. So anytime something with Shakespeare, especially Romeo and Juliet, comes up, I do get a little bit nitpicky.
Well, I think one of the better touches of the episode is Paris, like, being the sub, like, for Romeo.
For Tristan, yes, because that's absolutely something she would do, and it's fantastic.
Well, it works on two levels. It's quite a clever like character thing but also I think it's clever because that's obviously something they did back in the day with Shakespeare plays. They did put females in men, so it's almost a comment on that. But I did like that, and you could almost read it as a bit of like, if you do ship like Rory and Paris maybe as a couple, that's absolutely a little bit.
Like
of
I said,
that.
I do understand why they did it, and your average viewer is not going to complain. I'm just me, and I love this particular play and get very defensive over it. So that's just my little nitpick.
I'm pretty sure they've never mentioned that Lorelai does a business school class before. So
no, they have. It's very, very brief, but it's in season 1. They have mentioned it, I think, once or twice, so it's not completely out of the blue.
Okay. And yeah, that stuff is okay. Like, I think the scene in the diner was funny. It's like, yeah,
Yeah, I do love that.
because
I've
he
always
looks
wanted a little brother.
ridiculously young compared to
He does.
at
Yeah.
business school. So that's
And
quite
because he's with his parents as well, like that makes him seem even younger, like he's out for a day with his parents. And like Rory said, she's all like, oh, maybe they'll let him ride a pony or something like that.
yeah,
Like
that was
she's
good.
having a
That
lot of
was
fun.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the other stuff, just back to the play stuff, is first of all, I kind of call bullshit on this idea that the play is worth 50% of the grade.
I know,
I've
right?
never heard of that before, because they
Yeah.
do this thing where there's several different plays happening on the same night or something, and I guess the idea is that they're all
So they're all doing a
being
scene from the
graded.
play.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's
but
ridiculous. And I would also say for an English class, why would a performance be 50% of your grade? You'd think an essay,
yeah.
like if it was a drama class, fine. But yeah, you're right. It's an English class and 50%? Yeah, it's a bit extreme.
Yeah, my experience of school plays is it's just extracurricular, and
Yeah.
it's just something you do, like as a thing. I never heard of you being graded on it before.
I remember when I did Romeo and Juliet, actually, we did do some interpretations. We were paired off and we had to do a scene, but it was only like 10% of our grade. It was literally like
Yeah,
almost
50's
nothing.
a lot.
Yeah, and it was just like a little bit of fun. Like my friend and I did a scene between Lady Capulet and Juliet, and that was it. So yeah, but you're right, 50%, that does not sound right, especially for an English class. Yeah. And a school like Chiltern as well. Odd.
Contrivances, like, because when they have that, who's the guy who's the understudy originally?
Brad? Oh yeah, now this is the first time we ever meet Brad.
Oh, is he in
yeah.
it more? I can't remember.
Oh yeah, Brad comes back a few times.
Well, he's out of something. Is he in like a Buffy episode? He's definitely out of something. I've seen.
Yeah, you're right. He is, isn't he? Yeah. I can't think at the moment, but you're right. He's yeah.
But yeah, just him randomly transferring or something to another school, and yeah, that was fast. They only rehearsed it the other night. He's already transferred, and I don't know. Was it meant to be just because he was freaked out? Is that why?
I think it's because he was just scared of Paris. I think the implication is supposed to be that Paris scared him off so much that he transferred schools. No, he will pop up two times more in season 2 and at least 2 times more in season 3.
Okay.
Yeah, not the greatest character, Brad.
Yeah, I don't really remember him. But there's some okay stuff with him. But yeah, they're just doing that obviously as a reason why it's going to be Paris at the end. Yeah, doing the thing. Okay.
And also them rehearsing at Stars Hollow, again, that feels like, I know that Paris can be very grr, and she's all like, oh, 2 other couples or 2 other groups are rehearsing at school, but really, why would she book Miss Patty's? Like, of all places, that seemed a bit like we have to get them to the town. So yeah.
Yeah, but she doesn't know that Rory knows Miss Patty, does she?
That's true, because she doesn't really know small towns.
A coincidence.
No, you're right. Okay, fair enough. Kind of half watched it. I was like, yeah, just kind of keeping an eye on it out of the corner of my eye while I was on my computer. It's really not an engaging episode.
Yeah. Okay, that's Gilmore Girls episode 9 of season 2. Let us know what you think of this one in the comments below. Like and subscribe. And look out for other TV shows we've been doing. We do Buffy on the channel, so we're quite close to finishing that. So another quite relatable show in some ways. So yeah, check out those reviews if you're a fan of Buffy. And we also have Christmas reviews coming up on the channel, so look out for that stuff as well. And Rachel, if you want to plug your channel.
Guys, you can follow me, Rachel McDonald, video essays on TV shows and movies. My Tumblr and Twitter are also linked through my YouTube, and Keith will usually put a link in the description. So come and follow me everywhere.
Okay, thanks guys. Keep watching TV, keep watching Gilmore Girls, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.